Welcome to the castle, everyone. My name is Alex, and I am your player, your GM, your host for A Table for One, a solo actual play podcast. And this is the Dragonbane playthrough. Now, previously, we had Rorik and Jaina out on their luck looking for a new job after a rather difficult fight with some bandits at the end of their very first job. And, well, they managed to make it in with Quasimodo, who is a mallard, with his band of adventurers, and they traveled to Riddermound. Rorik decided to be a little bit social, and, well, he came to learn that these band of adventurers are in fact down on their luck, and they're looking for their next big score, which they hope to make in Riddermound. But he also let slip that he and Jaina aren't exactly saints either, that they're running from something. And there's kind of a little bit of some animosity going on between the two parties. Well, they made it to Riddermound, and Rorik went into the tomb first, and as soon as the entire gang was there, they were attacked by vampire bats. Jaina and Rorik made quick work of those bats, and Quasimodo was so impressed that he decided to send Rorik and Jaina in to explore the depths of this tomb to see what they can find. And so our opening scene is going to start with, well, some concerns that Jaina has in this little adventure that they're about to go on. Rorik and Jaina passed through the double doors leading into the tomb. Further down the hall, Rorik feels a sharp pull on his shoulder. He spins and comes face to face with his sister, who begins to sign quickly. He is a little slow on the pickup, but manages to get the gist of what she is saying. "Are you sure we should be with these people?" He looks back the way they came. The walls of this place might echo his words, so he backs away further into the tomb, taking Jaina with him. "No, I don't. But what other choice do we have? We need the money, and if we can find valuables down here, then we can gain a little more coin than we have." Rorik's reasoning doesn't sway Jaina in the slightest. They sent us down here to die. They know something we don't, and if we come back with something valuable, they are going to try to take it from us. She has a good point. He can't fault her for that. "We'll handle it when it's time. For now, let's just focus on what's ahead." Rorik points further down the hall, which splits the path into three. Unbeknownst to him and Jaina, something stirs, a presence that has sensed the intruders in his domain. And so Rorik and Jaina are going to progress forward. They're going through these double doors with the symbol on it, and Jaina did go ahead and examine that symbol, and it has something to do with the Dragon Emperor, or his empire from long ago. Although there isn't really anything too revealing about that aspect, so we're just going to push through for now. And as soon as we step through the double doors, well, there's actually three options. We can either go left, we can go right, or we can go forward. But Rorik can immediately see that the way forward is blocked by an iron portcullis. And so I think he and Jaina are going to step up there first. And so they come across a small room with a floor of beaten earth. The flickering light of a torch streams through a black iron portcullis in the far wall. Two mummified guards with rusted chainmail and long spears flank the barred gate. And immediately Rorik is going to keep an eye on the mummified guards because his time in Deepfall Breach has taught him to suspect such things. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and see if there's anything going on with those statues. And so Rorik begins to cautiously approach the mummified remains, or the mummified guards, and he's going to take a look at their armor and their weapons. They're wearing some sort of a rusted chainmail. He kind of wipes off a little bit of it, and pieces of it begin to crumble as he does. They're also carrying spears, but he doesn't really have a need for that, and neither does Jaina. Jaina has her own staff, which is her weapon. Plus, she's magic, so just fling some fireballs and stuff like that. And so he'll go to the other mummified guard, and he'll knock on the armor. Pieces of it crumble down as well. And when nothing happens, he's going to go to the portcullis, and he's going to start to inspect that. Of course, there's no getting through. He will try to lift with all of his might, but it's just rusted shut and there's no getting through it. He's not a ghost or anything like that. And actually, we're probably going to go ahead and say that a full stretch has kind of passed at this point. And so that means we have to roll on an event. Because for every stretch of time the player characters spend in a room, searching it or taking a stretch rest, you can roll on the table below. The room descriptions indicate where random events can take place and which die to roll. You can also simply choose a suitable event. And so for this one, since we are in the guardhouse, we have to roll a d12. And so let's go ahead and do that very quickly. We're going to go ahead and roll that d12 and see what comes out of that. We have an 11, which is nothing happens. So 1 through 6 is something is going to happen, and 7 and up, there's nothing going to happen. Some of the rolls for certain rooms will have like a d8 roll or maybe even a d6 roll, so something will happen. But in this instance, since we rolled a d12 and we got an 11, nothing happens. So yay for us. And since there's no getting through this iron portcullis, Rorik and Jaina are going to take a step back because now there's 2 different ways that they can go. They can either go to the west or to the east. Rorik is going to confer with Jaina on this one. He's going to ask her, all right, which way do we go? Should we go left or should we go right? And Jaina kind of like gives him a blank stare, like, does it really matter? Just pick a direction. But he keeps staring back at her. And then finally, she's going to point. And which way is she going to point? I actually don't know. So let's go ahead and roll. I got a d6 on a 1 through 3. She's going to point left or to the west. And on a 4, 5, and 6, she's going to point to the east. And so she's going to go ahead and point to the west for this one. And so we're going to start to travel to the west. Look at that. And so they enter a dark, damp tunnel through packed earth that branches off in different directions. The air is chilly and filled with musty smells. Slithering roots, worms, and centipedes are hanging like stalactites from the ceiling and make the ground slippery. And so I think that Rorik and Jaina are so hyper-focused on their surroundings that they're not really going to pay any mind to like all the nasty critters that are crawling around or anything like that. Well, maybe Jaina might. But Rorik, he's very hyper-focused and he's trying to listen for anything that's approaching. And of course, the tomb just has this unnatural, eerie atmosphere and ambiance to it. It's like the wind kind of blows a certain way and it makes it seem like there's somebody moaning down here. And his first instinct is, oh great, there's a ghost down here or something like that. And his nerves are kind of on edge because of it. And eventually they come to a room, which is the servants' quarters or the servants' crypt. It is a dark and damp chamber. Dug-out burial niches cover the walls from floor to ceiling. Broken skeletons, moldered rags, and shards of crushed pottery can be seen all over the place. When they come across this scene, Rorik, well, he begins to get a little bit excited because their whole purpose for being here is to find valuables and riches. And as much as he doesn't really want to, he needs to search the dead's belongings or the dead to get their belongings so they can at least make some money on this trip. And so with that being said, he is going to go ahead and search, I guess, the niches first before we inspect what's on the far wall. So he's going to go ahead and do a spot hidden check to see if there's anything that he can find. And so his spot hidden is at 13. So let's roll. He has a 13. Look at that. Okay, so what do we find? Hiding behind the skeletal remains in one of the burial niches closest to the floor is a hyperventilating goblin. This goblin seems surprised and he screams out, "Ah!" And he like darts out of his little niche and startles Rorik in the process. Jaina's kind of like over by the exit, I guess, to the south, and she's just kind of like trying to make sure that it doesn't run away past her or anything like that. And she might even prepare a fireball spell just in case this goblin gets all hostile. But then Rorik's like, wait. and he begins to approach the goblin because he's had experiences with, not taming goblins, but befriending goblins, I suppose, back in Deepfall Breach where he came across that wounded goblin. And so I think the first thing he's going to do is he's going to take a ration out of his pack. Oof. And with that ration, he's going to kind of hold it out before him. Who knows, this goblin might be hungry. And as he kind of slowly walks his way up there, he kind of spots along the ground that the skeletons have been dragged out of their little niches. This goblin has quite possibly already looted here, but where there's one goblin, there's more. So when he finally gets within reach of the goblin, holds out the little ration, the goblin looks at it and then up at Rorik, then back at the ration. And then he takes it and then he scoots back against the wall and he starts eating. And Rorik can tell that this goblin has been here for some time because of just how starved he is. And so I think what we're going to do, Rorik is going to try to persuade the goblin into maybe revealing some information. Why is he here and how many of them are there? Just general information so he can get his bearings and make sure that they're not going into some sort of a trap or an ambush or anything like that. Besides, if this goblin is here scared out of his mind, where are the others? And why is this goblin scared out of his mind? Why have they been separated? Is there something else here that he should be wary of? And so we're going to go ahead and persuade. Rorik's persuasion is at 7, so not good. And you know what? I think since we did give up a ration for this goblin, that would constitute as a boon. Because the goblin, well, we haven't just stabbed it outright. We've kind of sort of helped it that maybe this goblin might be a little bit more open to revealing some sort of information or befriending us. So we're going to go ahead and roll with a boon for this one. So persuasion check, 7 or less. Let's hope it's good. So that is an 8 and an 18. And I don't think that we're going to go ahead and push the roll, which is rather unfortunate because we were really, really close. Instead, Rorik starts to ask the goblin some questions, but he doesn't really listen. He doesn't care. He's just shoving as much of that ration as he can until it's all gone. And then he's going to kind of just tune him out, I suppose. Now, Rorik does notice that this goblin has some keys on him for some reason. He doesn't really know what these keys are for, and so he's just going to leave this goblin with the keys, and he's going to inspect the northern wall, which is blocked off by another portcullis. Hey, go figure. He's going to test it out, doesn't budge. And in fact, he looks inside of the little keyhole, and he sees that part of it is broken up. Like part of a key is just stuck in there. He takes a look back at the goblin and his little key ring that's hanging by his side, and he sees 2 keys and 1 broken key just hanging there. So this goblin must have tried to get through this portcullis with no results. So what do we do now? What can we do now? Do we take this goblin with us, or are we just going to leave it here? Well, I think enough time has passed with the interactions with the goblin and the portcullis that we do need to roll for a random event. So grab our D12 and see what is going to happen. That is a 6. Draconic Vision. A stray memory envelops one of the characters, who is suddenly looking out over a strange city of turrets, towers, and horn-like spires. Something comes flying straight at the character, a huge dragon ridden by a knight in golden plate mail and a horned great helm. The player character must make a will roll with a bane to resist fear. The event can only occur once. And I think it only makes sense that Jaina is going to be the one to take this one, since, she's mostly attuned to magic, and I kind of figure that this is something that would happen to her specifically. So Jaina is going to roll a will save. Her will is at 15, so we got some good odds on this one, but it's at a bane. So let's see what happens. A 12 and a 6. So she successfully manages to overcome the fear. And I think while Rorik is inspecting the portcullis and trying to figure out just why there's a half of a key stuck in there, or like trying to figure out a way to get across. Jaina has her little momentary vision, and I think the goblin is going to notice that, you know, Jaina doesn't look too good right now. Like, she looks a little sweaty as she's having this vision. Her breathing is a little heavy and quick. I think the goblin is going to slowly sneak past her, and eventually it just straight up runs. And so the goblin just runs back down the tunnel from which they came. So let's see if Rorik can actually hear. And so this is going to be an awareness check for Rorik to see if he notices the goblin kind of just sneak out, I guess. So 11 or under for Rorik. Is a 17, so no, he doesn't. And so after a little bit of time, he turns back around and he sees that Jaina's leaning up against the wall. And so he rushes over to his sister and he starts to, ask her questions. Hey, what's going on? And eventually she gives him the thumbs up that everything is fine, doesn't need to take a rest or anything like that. And that's when Rorik notices that the goblin is missing. Jaina doesn't know where it's gone. And so with nothing further to do here, they're going to go back into the tunnels and go back into the entrance to the tomb. And they're going to continue to the east this time. And the passage is the same as, is very similar to what they've already encountered. There's just a lot of creepy crawlies all around, and they come across into a different room. A dark chamber with a packed dirt floor is what they find. 7 simple sarcophagi of stone are lined up along the walls. Several of them are open, and 2 skeletons have been thrown onto the ground. And so when Rorik and Jaina come across the crypt, they see this goblin struggling to pull the key ring, or a key out from the key ring to stick inside of the portcullis. And so Rorik is going to say, wait, hold on. I think we're going to go ahead and roll another persuasion check to see if we can persuade the goblin to, relax on the key so it doesn't break off. And so remember, Rorik has a persuasion of 7 or less, so let's see if he is successful this time. And so he is unsuccessful with a 17, and so the goblin is going to spin around and whip out a dagger. And Rorik knows that these goblin daggers probably have some sort of a poison. He found one at the entrance to the crypt in the last episode, so he's going to be a little bit cautious, and he's going to slowly pull out his shield. And, let's see. We got to draw for initiative. And so since the goblin kind of whipped out that sword, kind of as a surprise, I'm going to go ahead and draw for the goblin first with an 8. Sweet. And now for Rorik, a 10. Oof, boy. 10 for Rorik. How about Jaina with a 3? So she does get to go first, which is nice. So while Rorik is pulling out his shield, Jaina's just going to go ahead and step up and start flinging some spells. So this goblin has only 9 HP, which is rather unfortunate for it, because Jaina don't play light. She gonna do some stuff. And so she's going to do her quick motions and fling some fireballs at the goblin. Only just one. We're not gonna go ahead and upgrade this spell or anything like that. And so we do need to test for elementalism first. Her elementalism is 13 or under. Let's see. A 16. Uh-oh. That's not good. So she misses, or isn't successful in that endeavor. And so the goblin is going to go now. Uh-oh. I think this goblin is just going to charge straight for Rorik with his little tiny short sword, poisonous short sword. And so the goblin does need to go ahead and roll to see if it successfully hits Rorik. So the goblin has short sword, skill level 12. So let us see if he is successful. Ooh, with a demon? Nope. So, yeah, the goblin does not get to attack. And I think he's going to go ahead and stumble, and he's going to fall down to the ground. So he's kind of lost his weapon. It just like rolls out of the way. And so Rorik was prepared to parry it and possibly counterattack with his torch. But upon seeing this goblin as pitiful as he is, he's just going to go ahead and approach it. And he's gonna pick it up by like the scruff of his neck, kind of like a cat. And the goblin's like kicking and screaming. He's just trying to calm it down. And so we're gonna see, like, as Rorik is holding up the goblin, he says, "Oh, what should we do with it? Maybe Jaina might have something." So we're gonna roll persuasion for Jaina, and her persuasion, I believe, is 6. And of course, she is successful with a 5. And so the goblin turns and sees Jaina just standing there, and all of a sudden he is just enchanted by her looks, her beauty, I guess. And so in his eyes, she's like glowing, and the choir of goblins is like singing behind her, and like, I don't know, birds or bats are like flying all around her. And he's just so struck by her beauty that he stops kicking and he is relaxed in a way. Rorik kind of like holds him up as, "All right, are you going to cooperate now?" And the goblin just keeps staring at Jaina. And so Rorik lets him go reluctantly and like kind of waits to see what happens. And the goblin is just there. With that being said, Rorik is going to whisper to Jaina, "I think we're going to need that key ring. See if you can get it from the goblin." And so she's going to crouch down to his size, and she's going to infer about the key ring. Without saying any words or anything like that, because she is mute, the goblin kind of understands, and so he holds up his prized shiny possession, and he offers it to the beauty queen, or the goddess, I suppose, and she takes it. And then she chucks it at Rorik. And so Rorik is going to approach the portcullis with the key. But unfortunately, there's a trap. And I don't think he's going to suspect that there's a trap here because the goblin was over by the portcullis. Unfortunately, the goblin was also lighter than he is. And so a trap door is hidden under a thin layer of earth in front of the barred portcullis. The first character to approach the portcullis will fall through the trap door. The character falls into a pit with sharp wooden stakes at the bottom and takes 3d6 piercing damage. A successful evade roll halves the damage. So we can evade that. Unfortunately, we're wearing chainmail armor, so Rorik has a bane to evade. And so his evade is actually not so good in the first place. His evade is at 10. So we need to get a 10 or under for both of these dice. Wow. A 3 and a 5. Okay. So for some reason, all the banes and boons that we're getting were successful. So yes, he successfully manages to see that there is a trap there. And just in a nick of time, he is going to take a step back. It's only 3d6 damage, half of it. And so 7, 8, so he takes 4 points of damage. Now, we are wearing armor, so I am going to say that the 4 points of armor that we are wearing does negate that because it doesn't say anything about armor here. And I'm just going to assume that armor kind of just resists all forms of damage. And so like Rorik's foot just like falls through the trap and he manages to pull it back just in time. And meanwhile, he's just cursing, "Goblin." And he's like very unhappy about this, but he is going to go ahead and insert the key, and he's going to attempt to open the portcullis. Now, we do need to make a sleight of hand check in order to prevent the key from breaking and opening the portcullis, and Rorik's sleight of hand is abysmal. It's at 5 or under. And so let's hope. I mean, we've gotten some pretty good rolls with the Bane and the Boon, so let's see. 5 or under. Ooh, okay. With 5, that does work. Okay. So that happens. He manages to stick the key in and turn it ever so carefully, and somehow manages to not break the key with, wow, okay. So we'll take that. So the portcullis is unlocked, and he is able to open it by lifting it, and I guess we can progress to the next area. He's going to go back, and while he's going back into that crypt area, let's see if Jaina can find anything of use. So I think while Jaina is there with the goblin, she's just gonna do something so she doesn't have to look at the goblin watching her, because that's just creepy. And so she's gonna go to the unopened sarcophagi and she's just gonna try to open them. Jaina is fairly strong. She's capable. She's not as strong as Rorik, but she is still capable. She's been training in the mage school for the past something years. So I think that it is safe to say that she can at least push the sarcophagi covers off. So when she pushes the cover off of the sarcophagi, she's going to find 4 individually buried skeletons. Several of them are child-sized, dressed in the molded remnants of beautiful ceremonial garments. They're wearing gilded headbands and some jeweled rings. And so she's going to grab 4 of each. And so Rorik comes back into the room, and Jaina has just managed to pocket all of this stuff. She's not going to say anything about it. She's just going to kind of say, if you need to know, then you'll know. But Rorik comes in and tells her that he managed to get the gate open. And, well, we do need to roll for another event because we've spent a great deal of time here dealing with the goblin and opening the portcullis. So since we're in the crypt, we're going to roll a d12. So let's see what happens. A 4. Uh-oh, something happens. The white. The white has been disturbed by the character, and it attacks. As it is partially immaterial, it can pass through closed portcullises and doors, but it requires an action to do so. The white retreats to its tomb if it loses half of its HP and fully recovers there in one stretch of time. Uh-oh. So perhaps when Jaina looted those skeletons, the white awakened and felt the presence. Immediately, the room gets cold, and Rorik feels that shiver. His hairs on the back of his neck begin to stand up. Jaina knows what's coming. She knows that something, I guess I wouldn't say it's magical, but I think she's had enough training to know that to tell a ghost or some sort of an undead creature when it's approaching. So I think before the white shows up, Jaina is going to Rorik that something is coming. Prepare yourself. And so Rorik knows the signals that she gives in this regard. And so he's going to drop the torch there, and he is going to pull out his shield and his sword. So this white is vicious. It has a ferocity of 2, so that means it's going to be going twice in a round. It has 38 HP, and on top of that, if you're using non-magical weapons, it's going to do half damage. But of course, Rorik does have a magic weapon, and fire inflicts normal damage as well. It has a Morning Star and Chainmail, which means it has an armor rating of 4. And that's pretty much it. Its attacks are quite vicious as well. So we need to deal with this thing as soon as possible. As Rorik prepares, he draws his sword and his shield. Jaina has her hands available, ready to cast some spells. And even the goblin senses the danger and pulls out his little short sword. So they're just standing back to back to back, waiting for this thing to appear, and suddenly it does. The white is here. And so the white appears at the entrance to the south, and the trio are just standing there, weapons drawn. So let's go ahead and roll for initiative. We're gonna go ahead and roll for Rorik, then Jaina, then the goblin, and then the white. And so Rorik has a 6. Okay. Jaina has a 3. Awesome. The goblin has a 9, and the white has a 10. Okay, that's what we want to see. Also, the white has a 2. So he is going first and last. So I think before the white's turn, as it appears, Rorik is going to kind of whisper to Jaina, I don't suppose that you think there's any way of talking it out of this, do you? And she's just going to solemnly nod her head no. All right, the white is going first. So we need a roll on its monster attack table. D6. Oh, let's see what's going to happen. 3. Hand of the Dead. The white raises its hand and gestures at a player character within 10 meters, who is thrown 2d4 meters away and lands prone. The attack inflicts the same amount of damage and cannot be dodged. Uh-oh. Who's the weakest looking character? I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be the goblin. The goblin is going to get pushed back as the white force pushes it away. Yeah, that's totally what it's doing, by the way. So we got 2d4 coming the goblin's way, and of course, I'm using two different dice. I got an actual regular d4 pyramid, and then one is like a prism from the dragon eye dice set I have. So let's see what's coming the goblin's way. 4 damage, but the goblin is wearing leather armor, so it's going to negate 1 of that damage to 3. So the goblin gets pushed back 3 meters away and falls prone. So yeah, he's not going to be doing anything this round, if anything. Hopefully Jaina can do something about that, because she's going to step up and she's going to summon as much as she can for this one spell just to try to get this white out of here. She's going to cast Fireball. So Jaina does need to roll to see if she hits the white. Remember, it's a 13 or under for her elementalism. A 6 does succeed. She's going to muster up as much power as she can. And remember, for spells, it takes 2 willpower points to cast a spell. And if you increase the power level, it's going to take an additional 2 per power level. And for Fireball, it's going to increase it by a d6. So I think she's going to go ahead and roll 46. So that means she's going to bump up the power of this spell by 2. So 46 going her way. Let's see what happens. 14 points to the white. That's some pretty solid damage right there. But the white is still standing. So Jaina launches this massive fireball from her fingers, and it hits this white with a ferocious blast. And Rorik's going to take this opportunity, as the white is still recovering, to hold up his sword and rush in for a blow. So Rorik's sword skill is at 14 or under. Let's see what happens. At 11, that succeeds, and so he's going to do, 2d8 plus a d4's worth of damage. Alright, so we have 6 and 3, which is 9, plus an 8 is 17 damage. That's more than what Jaina did with her massive fireball attack. So we're dishing out quite a bit of damage to this white. As the goblin is standing up, the white is just going to disappear into the wall as it retreats, probably to lick its wounds and come back at them yet again. At the end, Jaina falls down to her knees and Rorik kind of falls to his butt as they both let out a heavy breath. Whites, undead. So what have they gotten themselves into this time? And I suppose we'll find out next time.
What did I tell my fool head of a brother? Something was down here, and we were very lucky to have had my magic. Check back every other Thursday for a new episode of Table for One, a solo role-playing podcast. If you would like to support this podcast, please rate it or give it a thumbs up, wherever you happen to be listening from. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, subscribe and be sure to leave a comment. Music was provided by Tabletop Audio and AI voice work by 11 Labs. Wait a minute. Brother dearest, where did you get that sword and why is it doing more damage than my fireball?